Hello and welcome to Atop the Fourth Wall, where bad comics burn. Excelsior, my friends! Stan Lee. Many Marvel Comics characters are ascribed to be his creations. He's a beloved comics icon, one of the last remaining Golden Age creators still alive, and he appears in pretty much every Marvel movie to the point where Deadpool should wave to him when he shows up in his movie. He wrote Nightcat, although we won't hold that against him. Does he deserve all the credit given to him for creating so much of the original Marvel Universe? Possibly not. But his place in history is still pretty damn secure, and he still deserves some of the credit, particularly for scripting and managing so much of Marvel back in the early days. But like the Marvel comic series of the same name, why don't we play a little game of What If, shall we? What if Stan Lee created the DC Universe instead? And that was the subject of a 13-issue series started in 2001, each issue a one-shot reimagining some DC character or event, with only some vague basics of the premise, but going off in whatever direction Stan decided to go with it. We're going to cover 4 of them this month, although it's likely we'll come back to this in the future. In the meantime, face front, true believers, as we dig into Just Imagine Stan Lee creating Superman.
Linkara's gonna teach you all a lesson you won't learn. Brodsky, you're not the smartest. Life out, you're not an artist. Anyone who's had a bad comic published, it could be your turn. Linkara, he's a man, punch, wears a pretty hat. Linkara, he has a magic gun. Where'd he purchase that? Linkara, coins, robots, Amazon and trucks. Linkara, this comic sucks. Linkara.
The cover is okay and gives us our first look at Stan Lee's version of the Man of Steel. And as you can see, it's quite a bit of a departure. If it weren't for the Superman logos on his chest, you probably wouldn't even think this had anything to do with Superman at all. It's not a bad costume either. I'm not really going to judge it by how much it resembles Superman, since the entire idea is to revamp the character as Stan would make it, given the basic premise. What I can tell, though, from the scattered panels around this Superman is that he likes to punch things. The left side has someone being knocked through a wall, presumably by punching. The right panel directly has punching. The lower right has him ripping off chains and looking like he wants to punch something. And in particular, in this corner, we see our hero and his desire to punch clock towers. We open in the beginning. No. We have to start from Act 2 or 3. That's where the plot really gets going. A far distant galaxy in another universe. So Superman is from another dimension? Did Atomic Robo fight Superman last week? No point telling you its name. You couldn't even begin to pronounce it. Unless this Superman has 3 tongues and more vocal cords than his otherwise humanoid appearance, I call bullcrap. We see Superman glaring at the reader while he's working on his alien Bowflex machine. Nearby is some pale woman in an old-timey dress. Just think, Salden, the discovery of the space-time bender will change our world forever. So they've discovered Bender's big score. That was always my favorite of the Futurama movies, too. Also, kids, don't play with anything that bends space and time. This is how we got composite Hitler and Stalin, who was also a werewolf. It's apparently something that will allow them to travel across space instantaneously. However, our soon-to-be Superman is unimpressed. I get enough kicks as a lawbringer, Liella. When I'm back from mopping up the slime balls, then you, baby, provide all the excitement I need. On going back to that unpronounceable galaxy, Stan gives us this narration. I've taken the liberty of translating our character's dialogue into basic Earth for those of you whose galactic vocabulary may be a bit rusty. And yet it's good to know that in their strange, sophisticated alien language, they still have the slang for the word baby. I wonder what other things their language apparently has. What is the pseudo-Kryptonian for popcorn chicken? Oh, and thanks, Stan, for letting me know that basic Earth equals English. Anyway, Buff Hardback here is weightlifting because the other cops on his team have all been genetically modified to be super strong, so he needs to constantly exercise to compensate. You know I can't bear being the weakest of all. I want to be the mightiest, the best. I want my exploits to be as strong as my love for you. If only someday our people would invent the montage. But that is but a fool's dream. I wish you didn't have to go, darling. I have a strange sense of impending doom. Damn it, baby! We're trying to redo Superman's origins here. Save your spider sense for later. With that, Slab Bulkhead jumps out the window and flies off. Yep, he can fly already. This new shoulder harness the department issued me is the quietest of all. Even at full power, it doesn't make a sound.
I could go on and on forever about the silence.
Silent flying harnesses, space-time benders, there's nothing science can't do! Wait, so in this story, Superman is that guy from all the Pokemon games who talks about how awesome science is? He flies down to his team, which is in the middle of a hostage situation. Some terrorists have taken an interplanetary cruise bus hostage. The other cops want him to stay behind them since, well, they're genetically modified and stuff, but then the terrorists toss out stun grenades that knock out the guys in front.
Ah, you fool!
Actually, it's kind of surprising they're using stun grenades. You'd think terrorists would be the ones to use, exploding ones. Then again, the stun grenades do seem to be blowing off their armor. Maybe they stun you in the sense that since you're dead, you're as good as stunned? Also, why is Salden the only one wearing the red and blue uniform instead of the darker green and brown outfits his fellows are wearing? Genetically modified must mean smart enough to wear body armor. Then again, that didn't seem to stop the stun grenades, so maybe Salden figures if he's gonna die, he'll at least look fashionable. Salden grabs a grenade of his own and tosses it at the bus. Now you stay back, squadmen, while I save your butts. I'll toss the bomb over the cruiser to the starboard side. That'll make them direct their fire away from us. It's a good thing I'm being so quiet and subtle about my plan. It'd be really bad if they knew what it was. However, the plan works and they're distracted, allowing Salden to slip underneath the bus and crawl in through an emergency hatch. Once inside, he starts beating up the terrorists single-handedly, although since this is Stan Lee writing it, he loudly announces what he's doing while he performs these feats. It's been over 350 episodes and I still don't understand this, especially from Stan Lee. He pioneered the Marvel method, aka the creative team comes up with the loose idea of the story, the artist draws it, and then the writer comes in and scripts it. He could clearly see the art, so why does he feel the need to have his characters exposit loudly what the art is showing us? Anyway, later on, we cut to a maximum security prison where a convict named Gorak manages to steal a flying harness from one of the guards. You'd think if they had flying harnesses in prisons that they'd be, flying to keep that sort of thing from happening. Gorak was apparently sent to prison by Salden, and thus he decides to head to Salden's place to get his revenge. However, he instead finds Salden's girlfriend, Liella. Seconds later, and she's tied up in this panel. Man, Gorak must have been an Eagle Scout or something. Getting her tied up and gagged in only a few seconds is impressive. Less impressive is that he hears sirens and decides to take his revenge out on Liella, murdering her off-panel. Liella? Liella! No! That haircut is terrible! Liella is dead! Gorak killed her because of me! I've lost the one who meant more to me than anything else in the world! You were such a richly nuanced and developed character, too! Also, man, I know you're grieving, but I think you need to check with somebody about your hands. What the hell's going on with those? Anyway, Salden quickly learns that Gorak is on his way to the launch pad for the space-time bender, and indeed, we cut to him shooting the pilots. There's no place in this galaxy left for me to hide, but that ain't stopping Gundor Gorak. This two-man space-time bender is my ticket out of here. It's a good thing he mentioned that spaceship is a two-seater. I was worried we'd find out it was an SUV or something. And since it's the only ship of its kind, there's no others that can follow me. so once I set course for an air-breathing planet in another galaxy, I'm home free! And since it's a one-of-a-kind spacecraft, I instantly know how to pilot it! However, he spots Salden running up to the ship and decides to let him in and get his full revenge. However, to make sure he can't stop him, Gorok has the ship take off, sending Salden flying to the back of the ship. The two begin brawling it out, with Salden's rage allowing him to gain the upper hand. How about I do what all the prisons and lockups couldn't do? How about I rid the universe of you once and for all, you slimy, stinking, murdering maggot? Ah, such a sophisticated and eloquent language this alien culture has. With nobody operating the controls, the ship hurtles out of control until it arrives at, where else? Earth. Gorok knocks Salden out. No time to finish him off. Lucky there's a spare shoulder harness on board. Of all the plot holes Stan Lee decided to address, he chose the "Where did Gorok get a new flying harness" issue. A plot hole that wasn't really one, since he could have just had the same one he took from the prison. The ship crashes into the ocean as Gorok escapes. Salden awakens and thinks he's done for, since the pressure is preventing him from opening the hatch. However, upon just leaning against it, he finds himself strong enough to open the door and then zooms to the surface. He swims for the coast, narrating to himself along the way. It isn't possible! I'm swimming like a human missile! Like a non-human human missile! Even those hungry, sharp-toothed sea creatures can't keep up with me. Eat my dust, just imagine Stan Lee creating Aquaman! He takes a rest on a beach, and is almost immediately set upon by three goons. Hey, we found ourselves a turkey! Ah, so the space-time bender brought him to Earth in the 70s. Wake up, pretty boy. Anyone sleeps on our beach gotta pay for the privilege. How is business doing in the beach extortion racket? In response, Salden lifts the guy up by his belly button. Yeah, I'm sure it's supposed to be his belt, but it really looks more like he's pinching his belly button. I don't understand your stupid-sounding lingo, but nobody mauls me, get it? Remember, class, we're translating Salden's speech into English for you from its original basic Intergalactic. Thank you, Stan. I was really confused right there, since I had forgotten about the other narration box where you told us that 13 pages ago. Salden tosses them away, much to his own surprise about how strong he is. Damn, my wrist communicator fell off! The wrist communicator that is not in any other shots. Whatever. But I don't get it! Look at how slow it's falling! Look, audience! Look at how slow it's falling! He realizes the gravity of Earth is much weaker than his own planet, thus he's able to move faster and be stronger. Compared to the people of this world, I'm some sort of Superman! No, wait, that's a stupid name. Wait! I've got it! Blast Hard Cheese! I just noticed this, but he's also got a big S-shaped scar on his face. I bet if this was Man of Steel, he'd say it's not an S, it's their word for ow in his language. He decides to check out Earth and see what things are like. He discovers some more of his powers. The lighter gravity means he can leap around, and the thinner atmosphere gives him something akin to telescopic vision. And clearly, a thinner atmosphere also means he should be able to breathe easier, just like how people find it super easy to breathe on Mars. He also discovers his flight harness was damaged, but he decides to keep wearing it in honor of his homeworld. He wants to go back, if only to honor Liella's memory, but not before he's avenged her death. Walking around a nearby city, he is apparently able to absorb the language just by friggin' looking at it! Amazing! Only 26 letters in their language. Back home, our alphabet has more than 1,000! Kryptonian Sesame Street must be fun. And yeah, I know it's not called Krypton in this story, but if Stan isn't gonna bother giving us a name, it might as well be. Anyway, people begin to comment on his attire. "Samata, dude, did you lose the Starship Enterprise?" Yes, my favorite of the Starfleet uniforms is the one that featured a cape. Hey, glop onto the far-out hunk! Wow, he could frazzle my fantasies anytime!
You're not even speaking English at this point!
Listen to them! I'm marooned on a planet of clowns! Their language is so simple, I've fathomed it already! That is not how language works! Which is lucky for me, no more translating. And we immediately cut to Gorak interacting with some tribe from, I don't know, South America, Africa? It doesn't say. It's just a population of half-naked black guys who all have the same haircut. And considering Stan's claim that he doesn't need to translate anymore, I'm guessing he really does think everybody on Earth speaks English. You saw me fly down from the sky, so that makes me a god, right? A true god can defeat my warriors in battle. Just imagine Stan Lee creating racist stereotypes. And indeed, after he kicks all their asses with a tree trunk, they start worshipping him as a god. However, he soon grows bored with lounging around in a tropical paradise and decides to see if there are any more advanced cities around, where he'll probably still just lounge around after conquering them, so I don't see the point. Back over to Salden, he comes across a circus that has apparently needed to cancel their show because their trapeze artist injured his ankle. A real pity that. I even heard that Bruce Wayne was gonna see the performance of the Flying Graysons, but hey, them's the breaks. Salden says he can do the trapeze act, and although the circus owner is reluctant to trust some random asshole, he figures at least he'll be able to open his show this way. Wow, must be a really crappy circus if the only attraction is a trapeze artist. And indeed, Salden is able to wow the crowds with a show of strength and acrobatics thanks to his leaping powers. The owner pays him and asks for his name. Salden, thinking that people may not take kindly to an alien, comes up with the alias Clark Kent based on some nearby signs. And apparently he made enough money from one day of the circus act to rent an apartment, which I presume came fully furnished, since I don't see Salden going out for furniture shopping. This was Liella's favorite type of credenza! Does it come in red? As well as buying a TV and a computer. Who knew the circus paid so well? Anyway, he did this to learn more about Earth. But I don't like what I'm learning. They've only taken the first steps in space travel. They're nowhere near discovering the space-time bender. And their porn technology is light years behind ours. He wonders aloud about how they're spending all their money on things like war and crime and traffic accidents, but since no progress seems to be made on it, they'll never have the right technology in his lifetime. He then wonders if that means fate sent him here for a reason, to use his powers to help these people. If my powers could abolish war and crime, maybe they'd have the trillions they'll need to span the galaxies. Superman! Helping you spend government funding on space travel! Even then, Superman, maybe you shouldn't be helping these people. After all, war and crime and stuff are problems that are over there. And over there needs to take care of itself. There's a knock on the door, revealing a reporter who heard about the circus incident and would like to interview him, but Salden just tells him to piss off. No time for interviews. First I've gotta find Gorak. Then I'll lick the crime problem here so they can concentrate on their space program. And then the very next panel, looks like the last tenant left some comic books behind. No time for interviews. I have to fight crime and... Ooh, Unbeatable Squirrel Girl. Drawing inspiration from the superhero comics, he figures he should take on a secret identity in case the government comes around to try to dissect him. He'll claim that his powers come from his suit. Meanwhile, Gorak is casually walking through the city, ripping open ATMs to get cash. However, when he passes by the Church of Eternal Empowerment, owned by a Reverend Dominic Dark. Pro tip, don't go to a church if the Reverend's name is Dark. It's like going to the church officiated by Harold P. Satan. I don't care if it's pronounced Satan, it's just asking for trouble. An elderly couple invite Gorak in, claiming that Reverend Dark knew he was coming. Curious, Gorak enters and meets with the Reverend, who naturally wears face-concealing robes and actually looks more like one of the ghosts of Christmas from Teen Titans number 13. What kind of stupid game you playing? Me, I don't like games. I mean, you restore your humanity points by dancing at a nightclub for 5 minutes? What kind of a lame mechanic is that? Dark tells him Gorak was chosen to serve him, but Gorak isn't taking any crap, lifting up a bench to throw at the Reverend. However, with a wave of his hand, Dark reduces the bench to ashes. With that little demonstration out of the way, Gorak follows Dark through a portal. Back over to Salden, he has yet another visitor, Lois Lane. Except she's not a reporter in this version. I'm an agent. I can make you rich and famous. If I become famous, Gorak may come after me. Superman, fighting for truth, justice, and becoming rich and famous. And so Lois talks about promoting him as Superman. However, they're interrupted by a group of government agents suddenly storming inside, demanding he hand over his suit. Here, take it. I'd like it dry cleaned and returned in the morning. No starch, okay? So Krypton has American slang, clowns, and similar laundry practices. I'm just trying to keep a running tally here of our less advanced civilization. One of the agents tries to use the harness to fly, but of course it does nothing. Salden refuses to explain how it works, and then suddenly yet another person storms in. A lawyer who demands they return the harness to Salden or else they'll sue. And they agree. Because apparently the government is suddenly afraid of lawsuits, I guess. But yeah, Lois hired the lawyer in advance to help with this sort of crap. The TV's still on! There's a news flash! What do you mean, still on? It was never on to begin with! You were still reading comic books when Lois stopped by. Anyway, the news reports that the president of China was captured by terrorists in Los Angeles, and naturally, the Chinese government is pretty pissed off, to the point of actually threatening war if he isn't returned in 12 hours. The terrorists, in turn, have demanded $10 billion. If there's a war, it could set their space program back for decades! And, you know, the several million people who would die, but look out, guys! We may not launch another space shuttle! Salden leaps out a window and arcs upward and flies. Did he also spend some of that money repairing the flight harness? Anyway, he apparently figured out where the Pentagon was because he flies out there and right into the middle of a meeting, where a general is saying that they have to acquiesce to the terrorists' demands. I have a plan. It's a long shot, but it might work. It's something only I can do. Well, I guess we'll hear you out. The only other plan we have is Batman's involving Hostess cupcakes. His plan isn't actually all that bad. The government makes the drop-off of the money as requested, only within the packaging is Superman. The terrorists then use a helicopter that sends a special signal down towards the ground, making it actually open up and take the package. Superman gets out of the packaging, ready to spring himself on the terrorists, but instead he only finds Gorak, who is holding Lois Lane hostage. Clark, who is this man? How does he know you? How does he know him? How does he know you? It's been like less than a day and Gorak has already taken you prisoner? Gorak's goons chain up Superman, but of course he easily breaks out of them. You shouldn't have reminded me of Liella! Now nothing in the cosmos can stop me! And the sound effects apparently decide to echo him. Nothing! Nothing! Nothing!
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
After beating up some guys, he frees Lois from the chains. Clark, you're wonderful! This'll be sure to get you a spot on Jay Leno. And think of the endorsements. Nike, Kellogg's, Nintendo. I can see it now. The Statue of Liberty gives you missions as you pursue the Zod Gang and learn about the stock market. Superman flies Lois out of his location, which just happens to be the sewers beneath a city, and heads back in to find the president. And all Lois can think about is worrying about Supes dying since she'll lose her biggest client. And, you know, World War III is somewhere on that list of things to worry about. After even more goons get beat up, Gorak tries to use some kind of bazooka or laser cannon or something to kill Salden, but he misses and instead just causes a cave-in that kills him. Our hero, who barely had to do anything to save the day. To make a long story short, Superman finds China's president attached to a clock tower, rescues him from an explosion, and war is averted. Later, Superman fears Gorak may have survived the cave-in and wonders where he got the terrorists that helped him with all this. However, Lois tells him not to worry about this stuff, and instead worry about his many endorsement deal offers they're getting. Know something, Lois? You're a treat for the eyes, but we're just not on the same wavelength. Maybe if you had some kind of premonition of doom, I'd be into you, but for now, eh. And so our comic ends with the two walking by Reverend Dark's church, Superman thinking once more of who could have helped Gorak, while Lois thinks about getting a 10% cut of his earnings. Thank goodness you're thinking about that and not the nuclear war you guys averted. That'd just be silly. Anyway, this comic sucks. Don't get me wrong, a lot of it is just okay, and credit where it's due. It's 42 pages long, and normally something that long on this show means they'd waste time. But actually, this book is very efficient, establishing a lot and moving at a good pace. However, the biggest flaws of it are the inconsistencies and the unlikable characters of our heroes. The inconsistencies are really just things like changing motivations on a whim, or forgetting plot points like the broken harness. But then there's just the fact that Superman is motivated purely by self-interest. Same for Lois, for that matter. He cares not a fig about humanity and just wants them to get their space program going so he can get home again. Assuming he even can. Plus, there's just the annoying fact that Superman's origin in this universe is basically just a women in refrigerators moment. Neither he nor Lois are actually interested in helping people, and that's a big turnoff for a superhero. I will say there are a lot of good ideas for the comic. Hell, I would have loved the idea of the book focusing on the fact that he's the weakest on his planet, the odd man out among his people, but that as soon as he arrives on Earth, he's stronger even than his fellows. He's the one at the top here. It's here where he's a Superman. But nope, let's focus on him trying to get rich and famous. Next time, we'll continue our look at Stan Lee's reimaginings of classic DC characters and see how he tackles the Dark Knight. So, like, did the government agents just kind of stick around after they were told they'd be sued? Just in the room when they hear that report? Okay.